Direct from Kansas City, it's Comic Book Late Night with Captain Logan! Featuring brand new comic book reviews, thoughts on comic news, obscure character of the week, and a little something from the comic vault. And now, here's Captain Logan!
Hello everyone! Welcome once again to Comic Book Late Night. I'm indeed Captain Logan. You know, I've been getting some messages from people lately saying, wouldn't it be cool if you had a co-host on Comic Book Late Night? And I'd love to have Vince on more often. To date, Vince has not actually been on the show yet, and time constraints and things have made it difficult for that to happen because of when I shoot the show, when it has to go up, and all those sorts of things. And as you may or may not know, Vince and I actually don't live in the same city together. We're actually about half an hour, 45 minutes away from each other. And so it makes it tough to do all of our shows together. And so, but I've been thinking, you know, the show would be spiced up a little bit if I had a co-host. And I'd love eventually, hopefully, Vince can be on more often. But for now, I decided to invite a co-host in. And probably not a permanent co-host, but just somebody to fill in for a while until I can get somebody more permanent. And so tonight I'm going to do something a little bit different. To introduce my co-host, instead of doing the monologue myself, I'm going to let my co-host do the monologue. And so now, for your viewing pleasure, here are the comedy stylings of Galactus. My new co-host, Galactus. Say hello to everybody, Galactus. Say hello. That's kind of how he likes to introduce himself. Galactus has asked me to stay here in frame while he does, because he's a little bit nervous while he does his comedy style. You know, Galactus, you're a little smaller in person. Turns out, I don't know. I've only actually talked to the man a couple of times, but okay. Galactus is speaking. I'll stop talking now. Without further ado, here are the comedy stylings of Galactus. That for Galactus is comic timing. That's like his best joke. You should probably laugh. I think he's only got like a couple more jokes left, so, you know, no big deal. Now he's kind of recycling his jokes. Anyway, that's Galactus, everybody. That's Galactus. I do kind of, now that it's just me and you, I do kind of wonder what Galactus does to people who fire him from their talk shows. Luckily, he's like little Galactus, so I think I'm probably okay. Anyway, I got a fantastic show for you tonight. Tonight I'm going to have Zoe70 from Cool Nerdz on, Skyping in to talk about Marvel Vs. Capcom 3. And he actually says more than 17 things, so that ought to be really fun. I'm also going to talk a little bit about All-Star Superman, DC movie that just came out this week. And I got lots of comics to review, and I'm going to show off some fan art at the end of the show. Not mine, because I don't draw. Somebody else's that they sent to me. And I got lots of great stuff going on, so I hope you really enjoy the show. Let's get with it right now with brand new comic book reviews. Okay, let's get the ball rolling with my favorite book from this week, Detective Comics number 874. Chances are this isn't the only time this has ever been done, but this issue did something I've never seen, and that's take the backup feature from previous issues and make the main event. This took me by surprise and struck me as really creative. Commissioner Gordon has been dealing with his long-lost son James in the back of the first 2 issues of Snyder's run on this book. It was missing last issue, and I was wondering about that. Now, suddenly, it's the main story. Commissioner Gordon finally meets his son, believed to be a psychopathic killer, who admits his emotional instability to his father, but claims he's trying to get his life turned around. He recounts a story about some people who were mean to him, but he managed to fight the urge to hurt them, thanks to an experimental drug that makes him better at social interaction. The drug, of course, seems very suspicious, and there's something not altogether sincere about James' story and his manner. He wants to get a job with Leslie Tompkins, and he asks Gordon not to block his attempt at getting the position, and to convince Dick Grayson not to stop it also. The meeting is very creepy, and I really feel for Gordon and the precarious position he's put in. Keep in mind that he's this unstable, potentially murderous guy, and he wants to work for a medical doctor. Francesco Francavilla takes Jock's place this issue for the art, and his close, minimalistic drawings of these characters really emphasize the awkwardness and uneasiness of this meeting. Meanwhile, Dick is working with Tim, Red Robin, who implores Dick to stay out of the field until he's had more time for the toxin to wear off that he was exposed to last issue. And Tim's right. He starts hallucinating weird stuff that made me reel a little. It's a brilliant mix of superhero, detective, and horror. And now, let's jump over to Action Comics number 898. Paul Cornell has happily not forgotten about what got Lex interested in the Black Ring in the first place, and brings in Larfleeze, the only Orange Lantern. I love how he's so greedy he makes a big deal out of how there's only one Orange Lantern. Lex pretends to go after his ring, only to have a bigger trick up his sleeve that will get him closer to the greater power he's been searching for. There's a big character reveal at the end that I've really been hoping for this whole time. Not a lot of story here, mostly a big, fun, colorful fight, but certainly a couple of important developments. It's nice to see more classic Lex Luthor ruthlessness. He's just nasty here, but in that lovable, pompous Lex way. Really solid, and looking like it should just continue to go up from here. And now, more of the intriguing exploits of Jim Downing with Spawn number 203. 3 issues into this new team, and I still can't get over how much story we're getting every issue. This is the most bang for $2.99 I've gotten from a series. It's been a pleasure getting to read this twice a month, and I'm sure after 207 it won't be as often, but I hope it at least won't get delayed again. Every issue is unpredictable, sets up interesting new developments, and pays something off. No exception here. We're seeing Jim and the woman he apparently is married to, which he found out about at the end of last issue, dealing with the pressures of the vicious media, who follow them both everywhere and never let up. Again, this has become much more of a horror comic than a superhero comic, and I love how something another book might play as mundane comes off as frightening here. We've got Clown making deals with a group of vampires. We've got Malbolgia finally starting some stuff as set up in 200, but none of that gets under my skin like the bright, nauseating lights of the paparazzi. There's a page of 4 panels where we see Jim and Sarah through the lens of a camera, and we're brought into this media nightmare along with them. It feels like being hunted, and we're made as uncomfortable as they are. We get into their heads, and we hate the media as much as they do. But Jim and Sarah react differently, and we feel that. Sarah's scared and wants to hide, and Jim just tries to take it, trying to remain as calm as possible, making it all about Sarah. He wants to get her away from this. He's not thinking about himself. But soon we discover at the end, in the most haunting way possible, that Jim Downing has a dark side. He doesn't don the costume one time this issue, and this book has become so layered and character-driven that I find myself not even concerned with stuff like that. I think we may be seeing the makings here of a true masterpiece. Okay, jumping over to Avengers number 10, more fun with the Infinity Gems. So I don't know, Bendis is still stretching this a little longer than maybe I'd like. There's still a lot of setup going on, but I'm not going to complain too much, because it is great stuff. We get to see the Avengers splitting off to get some of the remaining gems the Illuminati have hidden. One is deep below the ocean, in fact deep below Atlantis, and the other is hidden somehow in a Danger Room program at the old X-Mansion. Meanwhile, the rest of the Avengers find the Hood. There's a lot more action than we've had lately here, and Romita gives us a dynamite action scene in the Danger Room. He just loves drawing tons of random stuff attacking our characters all at once. Here we get a bunch of Sentinels, plus the Blob and several bizarre nameless creatures. But Bendis' strength is still his dialogue, and as much as I've made fun of this book for just having a bunch of people in costumes standing around talking, Tony's long monologue justifying the actions of the Illuminati is really the highlight of this issue for me. He points out that arrogance and ego are what drive these superheroes to do the extraordinary things they do. And maybe it's a terrible thing they had to do, but he says, and I quote, that it's nothing compared to the things we've had to do to keep the world safe. Great stuff. Really makes you think about what makes exceptional people exceptional. What makes it possible for these people to do the seemingly impossible. And now, let's do, finally, Fantastic Four, number 588, the final issue of Fantastic Four. I'll make this brief. This was one more issue to milk another $3.99 out of us before the series turns into the Future Foundation. The art is really pretty, I'll give it that, and it's not even the regular artist on the book. But nearly the entire issue is wordless. Yep, no dialogue until a short scene at the end with Spider-Man and Franklin, which I'll admit was quite touching. It's pictures of characters grieving about Johnny's death. That's pretty much it. I like good comic book scenes that can pull off storytelling without anyone talking, and there are some good examples of that here, especially a scene where the Thing fights Thor and Hulk until they finally just break down and have a good cry. There's some good, touching moments, but this wasn't necessary, and while I like a lot of individual panels, I did feel a little bit cheated on this one, especially with the regular price tag. Before I go to news, one more thing I wanted to mention that I forgot about is Avengers 10 also gives us the entire first issue of Heroes for Hire in the back, which I'm not going to review, but I just wanted to mention that it's pretty cool they're doing that. And I haven't been real happy with a lot of their advertising ploys and things lately in Marvel. I've made no bones about that, but this is neat. That I mean, for a $4 issue, since it's that expensive, that they would also give us this this whole issue in the back. That's pretty cool. I hope they do more of that kind of stuff. And now, on to news. First up tonight, I'd like to welcome my special guest, Zoby70 from Cool Nerdz. The YouTube channel is Zoby70. He is an action figure reviewer and also a video game reviewer, and he's a quirky, fun guy. Be sure to check his channel out, Zoby70. He's got over 3,000 subscribers, and he just keeps growing. Tonight, we're going to review Marvel Vs. Capcom 3. Let's take a listen. Okay, I'm here with Zoe from Cool Nerdz.
Yo, what's up?
He actually did a full review over at his channel, Cool Nerdz, so be sure and check that out. I thought it was really interesting, some of the characters they chose and some of the ones they decided not to. And of course, a lot of people are complaining that they, that there isn't enough character selection, but like they kept a lot of the big ones that people like. But has it occurred to you that some of the ones they kept are kind of maybe because of movies that are about to come out?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today. Yeah, because of Captain America, Thor, and Spider-Man. Yes, I think that's the reason why they did that.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I mean, Spider-Man comes out next year, but yeah, we got Captain America, we got Thor, and I mean, even Magneto, because we've got First Class coming out.
Yeah, I even see Professor X is in there.
Yeah, well, that would be an odd character to try to play as, right? But I mean, they kept a lot of the really big ones. Because, I mean, with the Iron Man and Wolverine, but then, like, some of the others they decided to add, like, X-23, that surprised me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if anybody liked her until the game came out, and everybody's saying, oh, I love X-23.
And you were totally right about what you said about Phoenix.
Oh, yeah, I love Phoenix, but she's super weak. Really
yeah,
weak.
Well, I felt like they kind of went grace over power on her. Where like she moves really gracefully, she looks like the Phoenix, and when she does her special moves, like they look really cool, but they don't do anything.
I mean, you're a comic guy.
Right?
Is she normally weak?
No. That's why I thought it was silly, because the Phoenix is like one of the most powerful entities in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, that's right.
And you could beat her up with like MODOK.
Yeah. And
I'm like, oh, and that was weird too, by the way.
Yeah. He's one of those useless characters we call him and Arthur. I don't know if you play Ghouls and Goblins.
Arthur,
he got like an armor suit on. He's kind of a useless character.
How is the online on it? Because I'm not actually playing online right now, so I haven't tried it. But like, are there a lot of people playing, or?
Yeah, it's a lot of people playing, but I wish that they had a little spectator mode. I'm not sure if you went on there, but spectator mode, it makes you see if you're in a lobby of people, and say you lost a match and you wanted to see the next match, maybe you want to pick up some skills or see what they're doing. The spectator mode wasn't there for you to be able to see them, so you just have to sit there and watch two cards bounce on top of each other.
Oh, that's irritating. Yeah, that would be annoying.
But they always say, well, not even them, the fanboys, they'll say DLC is coming to fix that, but it hasn't come yet.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just don't know why we rely so much on downloadable content. Like a lot of times, I wonder why we can't just get the bugs worked out before we release a game. I think most people would appreciate having to wait a little bit longer,
versus having to, especially when you have to pay for certain downloadable content. You were talking about that on your review on it also, about how they're answering the complaints about the character select with, well, we're going to have more later, but you're like, I really liked it when you said, well, you could, buy a hamburger or you could buy this character, and you're totally right about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that nickel and diamond. I don't know when that started coming. I think that probably been the Xbox thing or maybe the PC, but I don't like that, man. I wish they just put out a full game. It was ready, and we can all just call it another classic, like part 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, I'm used to unlocking things, and it's just weird that they don't. And you mentioned that too, but I mean, it's weird that they don't have, just unlockable characters. And I would be totally cool if they had, a large character, set, and then they added more later just because they wanted to. That'd be okay. But like, I don't know. It's just like it's a really clean, crisp game. It's really fun, but like, I don't really feel like I needed it. You know what I mean? Like, because 2 is still there, and 2 is a superior game in a lot of ways. I think mostly just because there's more to do.
Yeah. I went back to 2, man. I actually threw that in part 3 in the trash. I'm just playing. But yeah, it's just a quick way to get their money. But I think it's more money nowadays, Logan, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with the video. I remember video games used to set trends. Now they're just trying to make the money. And I don't really like it.
Well, that's a really good point, and I think that's especially true with fighting games because we're not making new fighting games anymore. When a new fighting game comes out, it's like trying to revitalize an old franchise or just cash in on an old franchise. I mean, they're doing Mortal Kombat later this year. Mm-hmm. And it's just called Mortal Kombat, and they figure you get name recognition, people will buy it. We don't get games like Fatal Fury and World Heroes and stuff like that anymore.
Killer Instinct, you ever play that?
Oh yeah, I was big into Killer Instinct, especially I liked Gold on the 64.
Yeah. I liked the fire dude. I forgot their name.
I don't remember the big one.
Inferno or something like that.
the thing I remember the most about that game was just the announcer voice, because he'd be like, "Placius," and I'm like, "Yeah."
You should bring back Shaq Fu. You ever play that?
Yeah, I did. I haven't thought about that game in a long time, actually.
Don't bring that back. That's a bad game.
Going back to the game, what do you think about Deadpool?
Oh man, he's cool. Man. I think he's funny. I like his sense of humor.
I like the way he moves. Surprisingly, like he's actually really fun to play with, and he's really like acrobatic and
he's
like,
silly. He's I heard him doing a show you can to taunt Ryu or whatever. I thought he was real cool.
And every time he shoots his gun, he feels the need to add sound effects.
Yeah, bang 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 bang. Yeah, it's cool. I think I heard him say they were hyper combo or something like that. I haven't played with him too much, but when I did play with him, I thought he was the bomb. Him and Dante.
So thanks for being with me.
Yeah, Captain Logan.
Having the show. Thanks. You too. Everybody, be sure and check out Zoe on Cool Nerdz. He's fantastic. Does a lot of action figure reviews and video game reviews and stuff like that. If you haven't seen him, he's crazy and zany, but also insightful.
Sadly, Dwayne McDuffie died this week. Dwayne McDuffie was the creator of Milestone Comics, a co-creator of Milestone Comics, and he co-created a lot of characters, among them Static Shock, which became really popular and beloved in the 90s. He wrote a lot for the TV show, and also he did a lot of things for Bruce Timm. He did some episodes of Justice League, and he's done 2 of the scripts for the DC Direct movies. He did Crisis on Two Earths, and he also did the most recent All-Star Superman, which I'm going to review in just a second. And it's really sad that it happened. He was really well liked in the comic book community, and it's really sad to see his departure. So rest in peace to Dwayne McDuffie. And now I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about All-Star Superman, which, like I said, he wrote, and he did a pretty faithful job to the source material. Did a pretty decent job adapting what Grant Morrison did into movie form. Some fans aren't loving it. A lot of people were complaining about things that they left out of it. And I think it's really quite good. It's better than I would have expected, I think, is the best way to put it. Let me put this into perspective a little bit. some folks are complaining about how much stuff they took out of All-Star, and in order to fit this into their normal 100-minute, 95-minute format. And here's the thing. Yeah, it could have been done better. I think that is probably true of most of the DC Direct movies. Could it have been done better under the budget they have? I don't know. I think that they're doing amazing, incredible jobs with really small budgets. And what you have to realize is how much these movies are making, or how much they're not making. It started with Superman Doomsday, which grossed about $9 million total domestically. And I researched this a little bit, and no other DC Direct movie has done any better than that. And, the most popular ones after that have done close to 8. I think Gotham Knight did that much. And then most of them have averaged somewhere between 5 and 6 million total. And obviously that's not even a good opening weekend at the box office. So what you have to realize is that they're not selling enough of these things to really warrant big budgets. And my assumption is that a lot of their budget goes to voice acting, because they get really big names a lot of times, and I would suspect that they're doing that to try to get people to buy them. And so they're probably putting more money into that than they are into their animation. So if you consider that, and you consider some of the shortcuts they have to make in animation to make it, worthwhile, so that they can actually afford to make these things, they're about as good as they can make them, I think. And so, it's unfortunate. I wish that they could spend more time on them. I wish they could just put one of these things out a year, and so that they can, do their very best work on one, but they wouldn't make as much money because they wouldn't sell any better just because they made one as opposed to 2 or 3 a year, I think. So I think a lot of the problems with some of these movies can be chalked up to that. Having said that, a lot of the problems with Superman Doomsday that I had were things that easily could have been fixed, because it just wasn't close enough to what was originally done, and way too much was cut out of it, and then too much silly stuff was added. That didn't happen here. All-Star Superman was quite faithful to the original with what was left in. And I feel like the crux of the piece is still there. I feel like, what really makes All-Star Superman work, and what makes it, one of the best Superman stories ever told, and I agree with that. A lot of people are saying that. I agree with that. I think Grant Morrison's work on that is amazing. It's all there. The relationship with Superman and Lex, and what happens at the end. All-Star Superman really is a great character arc for Lex Luthor, even I think before it is for Superman, and that's all intact. The decisions that Lex makes, and where he gets at the end, it's all there. I won't spoil anything if you haven't seen it. But that's all there. And then the stuff about the Superman lineage, that's all left intact. The only thing that was kind of wonky for me was just pacing, and the reason is because it's paced really well at the beginning. It feels very comic book pacing. I think the first half an hour is more or less pretty much like the first 5 issues of the comic, with some little things here and there taken out. But I went and started grabbing single issues, because I started noticing where one issue ended and another issue began from reading the comics, and I was like, this is really neat, especially like the hidden room in Superman's fortress. Like, that whole issue is there pretty much. It's all in the movie, and then you move on to then you move on to Lois and Lois's birthday, when she gets Superman's powers, and that's all intact. And then you move on to Clark and Lex in the prison, and the stuff with Parasite, and that's all there. And I was like, wow, they're doing every issue pretty much in order. This is amazing. And then they get to the end of the prison chapter, and Superman, or Clark rather, is on the ferry boat, and Lex's hench chick, I can't remember her name, she says, "Where to, Mr. Kent?" just like she does at the end of that issue, and then we skip like 3 issues ahead. We just skip a bunch of stuff, and when you look at the time, like where we were in the movie, it was like 45 minutes in, and I was like, yeah, they're gonna have to do this if they're gonna get to the rest of the important stuff that happens toward the end of the film. And so this is the biggest complaint I've had with a lot of these, is that it feels like real movie pacing, and then by the third act, it just goes lightning fast to get to the end. And it's because of time constraints. I mean, there's no way around it. How could they fix this? That's a really good question, because I loved the way the pacing was working at the beginning. I loved the relationship that was building with Superman and Lois. It was really close to what we had in the comics. So, I mean, you know, in order to get some of that other stuff in there that was left out, especially the Bizarro fight and the Smallville stuff, what probably, you know, in order to fit it into their, you know, 95, 100-minute, you know, time constraint, what we probably would have had to have done was shrink some of those scenes and leave some stuff out. And I'm not sure I would want that either. So, I don't know. I think that it stands really well on its own. And if you haven't read the comic, I think you'll really enjoy the movie. If you have read the comic, I still think it's quite good. And having said all that, this is going to sound kind of funny, but don't just see the movie. Do read the comic, because the movie still does not have the impact that the comics have. And that's about it. The only other thing I wanted to mention is I missed the Superman of the Future. A lot of people are saying they missed the Bizarro fight, and I did too, but I really missed the Superman of the Future because that really enhances the whole point that's made at the end. Where it's revealed how Superman has a lineage when we're told, and this is in the movie, when we're told that Superman and Lois aren't compatible, that they can't have children together. And I think that, you know, that scene in Smallville where in the comic where we get, you know, the unknown Superman of the future and the other couple of futuristic Supermen, that all helps enhance that point. And I think that in the movie it's kind of glossed over a little bit. So I did kind of miss that. But I think that Frank Quitely's art is made pretty faithfully to the original. For a minute I wasn't sure it was going to work, but it looks okay. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it. So there you go. Well, that's it for the news for today. And now, a trivia question. Today's trivia question is, what series marks the first appearance of Marvel's cosmic being known as the Beyonder? If you think you know, leave your answer in the comments below, and I'll be sure to mention the first person who got it right in next week's episode. And last week's question was, how many years was Barry Allen dead between when he died in Crisis and when he was brought back recently? The answer was, of course, 23 years. It's been 23 years, and the first person to get that correct was Sheevy722. So well done to you, or possibly S-Heavy722. Good job, and again, be sure to leave your answer in the comments below. And now it's time for some more useless knowledge to cram your brain with. So I may have just found my new favorite comic book reference in a movie that is not primarily about comic books. I recently saw Catch Me If You Can from 2002, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. It's based on a true story that happened in the late 60s, and it's a brilliant character study that follows the life of Frank Abagnale Jr., one of the most brilliant con men in history, who managed to pose as, among other things, an airline pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer, and stole millions through an ingenious bank fraud scheme, all before he was 18. It's a really smart film, both dramatic and funny, and there's a Flash reference that's a good example of how subtle the film is. Frank poses as a Secret Service agent when Hanratty, who works for the FBI, finds him. He says his name is Barry Allen. Now, earlier in the film, before Frank runs away from home and embarks on this scheme, we see Flash comics on a table in his room. So if you know the Flash, you already know where he got the name, and the movie doesn't have to tell you. But then later, when Hanratty is sitting at a table going over records, looking for the name Barry Allen, a waiter walks by who happens to be into comics and asks if Hanratty is a collector. Hanratty feels like a total dupe, because of course, he wouldn't know the name of the Flash's secret identity. It's a clever device because those of us who already know have a chuckle while we watch Hanratty get furious about it, while we knew the whole time. And if you don't know, it's a fun way to find out, and the name still pays off. Today's Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by the government agencies in Marvel, Armor and Hammer, protecting us in ways that baking soda never could. Have you ever heard of The Ringer? First appearing in Defenders number 51 in 1977, Anthony Davis was a professional criminal who used to work for NASA. Of course, if you want your villain to have the skills to build a souped-up battlesuit, it only makes sense that he'd be a former NASA employee. He designed a suit and the Tinkerer built it. He broke into one of Richmond's buildings, but was thwarted by the Nighthawk. He went to jail and decided he wasn't cut out for crime, but he planned to, get this, rent out his battlesuit to various criminals as a quick money-making scheme. The Beetle tricked him into wearing his suit again by making him think he'd rigged it to explode if he took it off, and he was beaten up by Spider-Man, deathly afraid of fighting another superhero. Seriously, possibly the lamest excuse for a supervillain I've ever heard of. He's not the dumbest, though, because the next time he got out of prison, he was smart enough to realize how many supervillains there are in New York, and he moved away, operating as a low-rent villain doing petty crimes in the Midwest. Unfortunately, he had the worst luck ever and was killed along with a bunch of other obscure villains in a bar in Ohio by the Scourge, whose life's goal was to knock off as many supervillains as he could. Of course, there had to be another ringer after his death who proved to be as lame as the first, named Keith Kraft, who was, among other things, both beaten up by Moon Knight and employed by Justin Hammer. Most recently, he worked for Norman Osborn in the Shadow Initiative. And special thanks to Holson85 for requesting this week's Obscure Character of the Week. If you have an idea for Obscure Character of the Week, or you have some fan art you'd like to show off, or you have anything you'd like me to review, or a question you want me to answer on Late Night, leave me a personal message on Geekvolution on our YouTube channel, and I would love to hear from you. And now, let's find out what I've pulled out of the comic vault. Today in the Comic Vault, we're going to take a look at Superman the Phantom Zone #1. Charlie Queskull works at the Daily Planet, but he's been falling asleep at the job and having bizarre mental breakdowns due to visions about Krypton. Through his dreams, we learn all about Jor-El's invention of the Phantom Zone, how it was implemented into Krypton's judicial system, and we learn about the worst of Krypton's lawbreakers who were thrown into the Phantom Zone, including Jax-Ur, Kruel, get it? And, of course, General Zod. We come to find that Queskull is actually the worst of them all, a Kryptonian whose real name is Quex-Ul, and he's been out of the Phantom Zone for a long time posing as a human. Mysteriously, he doesn't remember his life as Quex-Ul, nor does he have any powers due to the effects of gold kryptonite. He's apparently really susceptible to telepathic persuasion because of his condition, and the remaining villains of the zone are able to will him to prepare the Earth for their arrival. To make a long story short, Quex-Ul unwillingly releases the villains of the Phantom Zone, and they trap him and Superman inside the zone at the end of the issue, a story that continues in the rest of the miniseries. Now, what I really like about this, even despite the convenient way the Kryptonians get out of the zone and the whole absurd gold kryptonite thing, is that this easily could have just been a thinly veiled history lesson about the Phantom Zone, but it actually tries to tell a new story about it. I haven't read the rest of the mini, so I don't know where it goes, but there's an intriguing predicament set up at the end that makes me interested to read more. But it also gives us all that background about the zone, which is really comprehensive and fun to read. There's not a lot of Superman himself in the issue. He pretty much just shows up at the end and gets trapped in the Phantom Zone. But the mythos about Krypton is really interesting. The book is pretty smart about it, and it asks a lot of questions, kind of shrouding Krypton in mystery, the most important being, how could such a seemingly enlightened race produce so many tyrants, mad scientists, and psychopaths? Well, hey, that's all the time we have for you tonight. Thanks as always for watching. If you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Pop Culture Comics in Overland Park, Kansas. It's where I get all my books, and it's my favorite comic book store. Be sure to support your local comic book shop, and remember, if you're driving like a Studebaker or a station wagon or an ice cream truck, just because you call it the something mobile does not necessarily make it a cooler car. And I want to close out tonight by showing a little bit of fan art behind the credits from Radman RB. So take a look. Thanks again for watching. This is Captain Logan, signing off.